in this beautiful liquid sunshine. My name's Gordon. I'm from the Boycott Israeli Apartheid campaign. And we're here today in front of Chapters to talk about boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel. And Chapters is part of the problem, and I'm going to tell you about that. But first I want to tell you why we need to have a boycott, divestment, sanctions movement. Because Israel is a pariah that refuses to follow international law. There is over 30 Security Council resolutions that Israel is defying to this day. Every day, Israel violates the 4th Geneva Convention, which is one of the cornerstones of international law. Every settlement, every house illegally built on Palestinian land, and there are now over 500,000 Israeli settlers on stolen Palestinian land in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Every one of those houses is illegal under international law. Over the last 10 years, Israel has killed, the Israeli military has killed more than 4,000 Palestinian civilians, including over 1,500 Palestinian children. That means they have killed a Palestinian civilian more than every day for the last 10 years, if you can imagine that. So Israel is outside international law, but the international community is doing nothing about it. The U.S. is sending them $3 billion worth of arms every year to commit these crimes. Canada is one of Israel's greatest friends. In fact, Israel's foreign minister said, "We have no greater friend than Canada in the world." Canada is providing diplomatic support. Canada is providing all kinds of support, political support to the Israeli government. So the international community is doing nothing about the occupation, the Israeli occupation of Palestine, is doing nothing to end these grave violations of international law. So the people have to do it. We have to do it. We have to take it into our own hands. And that's why we're here today to talk about boycott, divestment, and sanctions. That is one of the most important movements in the world today as far as getting justice for the Palestinians and peace in the Middle East. In 2005, because of this long-standing 40-year failure of the international community to do anything about bringing freedom and peace to Palestine, 170 Palestinian civil society organizations called for an international campaign of boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel until it complies with international law, based on the campaign against South Africa in the 80s that successfully brought down apartheid. So that's why boycott, divestment, sanctions is important. Now, as we stand here today, the Gaza Strip has been, for over 1,000 days, for over 3 years, Israel has hermetically sealed off the Gaza Strip and not allowed in any kind of humanitarian supplies except the absolute bare minimum to keep people barely alive. Jimmy Carter himself said that people in Gaza are starving because of the Israeli blockade, and it's worse. The level of child malnutrition is worse than in sub-Saharan Africa. That's because Israel won't allow humanitarian aid into Gaza. They won't allow anything into Gaza. Basically, there's 40 items that they will allow in, but nobody knows what they are. There's supposedly some secret paper that says which 40 items Israel will allow in. And it changes. Sometimes they allow in parsley, sometimes they allow in cilantro, sometimes they don't allow in either. Now, how are you going to build a rocket out of cilantro? I can't quite fathom that one. Anyway, as we speak today, there is a freedom flotilla, a free Gaza flotilla heading towards the Gazan coast. 9 ships with 10,000 tons of humanitarian aid is heading towards the Gaza coast right as we speak. And the Israeli Navy has said that it will do everything necessary, including using force, to stop these peace activists from bringing humanitarian supplies to Gaza. So I want you to all, when you go home, go to your computer and go to witnessgaza.org and follow this flotilla as it goes towards the Gaza coast, bringing children's toys, bringing reconstruction supplies, bringing food and medical aid. We need, this flotilla has to get to Gaza. We must break the siege of Gaza. So go to your computer, and after you find out where they are and how they're doing, write a letter to Stephen Harper. Write a letter to the CBC. Why aren't they covering this? Why don't we know about this in Canada? Write a letter to your representative. Write a letter to the Israeli consulate. Send an email. Make sure that everyone knows about this freedom flotilla and the importance of breaking the siege of Gaza. And now, I'm going to come to this building right here. As I've said, boycott, divestment, and sanctions is an important and groundbreaking and movement that's gathering a momentum around the world. Some of the largest pension funds in Europe have gone for divestment against Israeli companies and companies that profit from the Israeli occupation. Some of the largest unions, public and private sector unions in Europe and in Canada, including CUP-W and CUPE Ontario, have voted to support boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel until it complies with international law. So this is a growing movement. And one of the crimes that we can deal with here locally is chapters. The two main shareholders of chapters have started a foundation called the Hesig Foundation, which gives grants and money to foreigners who go to fight in the Israeli military and go and enforce the occupation and kill Palestinian civilians. That's right. They're encouraging mercenaries to come from around the world to go and fight in the IDF. So that's why we say that chapters has to disassociate themselves from the Hesig Foundation, and we want to stop chapters. Every time you buy a book in chapters, you're supporting the war crimes against the Palestinians. Every time you buy a book, some of that profit goes to the Hesig Foundation to support war crimes against the Palestinians. So they're supporting the Israeli military, they're supporting war crimes, so don't buy books at chapters. I've got some flyers here which talk about the consumer boycott and other products that you can boycott, including Mountain Equipment Co-op, which is one of the churches of Vancouver, but they refuse to stop carrying Israeli products. MEC hydration packs are made by an Israeli military contractor who supplies hydration packs for the siege of Gaza, the invasion of Gaza, and the killing of thousands of innocent civilians in Gaza. I'm sure you all remember that just over a year ago, over 1,000 Palestinian civilians were killed by the Israeli massacre in Gaza. It wasn't a war, it was a massacre. 99.7% of the civilian casualties were on the Palestinian side. That is not a war. That is a massacre. So we say no to Israeli massacres and support BDS, boycott chapters, don't buy Israeli goods. There's a whole list of them in this pamphlet. And I'm going to end off with a chant.
Now keep on going.
I want you to all join in. Occupation is a crime. Afghanistan to Palestine. So let's try it. Occupation is a crime. Afghanistan to Palestine. Occupation is a crime. Afghanistan to Palestine. Occupation is a crime. Afghanistan